what's going on, guys? It's Punkify here for MMOBomb.com, and welcome to the Free-to-Play Cast, episode 67. My name is Punkify, your host, and I hope you guys have been doing well. I've got some great news for you today and some really interesting discussions to bring up. But as always, we're going to go ahead and first off introduce our co-host. This is somewhat of a more intimate recording, I guess you could say. We have only one co-host today, Oni Snake. You guys, he's been on quite a few of these ones recently. Oni Snake, how are you doing?
Doing good. I've got my Roy Rogers and ready to go.
You're Roy Rogers? Yep. Right? That's like a tongue twister a little bit. Roy Rogers. All right, Oni Snake, I'm glad to have you on. Glad to know or glad to remember that your name is indeed inspired by Metal Gear. And let us go ahead and jump right into the news this week. All right, so our first article today is introducing Timegate Studios' new shooter called Minimum. Now, for those of you who are unfamiliar with Timegate, they haven't really made any free-to-play stuff before, but they're probably best known to having a product or having a, what would you say, a contribution, if you will, to the failure that was Aliens Colonial Marines, that terrible, terrible shooter that was originally developed by Gearbox, and I believe Timegate actually assisted them in that, and it got terrible reviews, absolutely terrible reviews. But Timegate is trying to press on, trying to distance itself from that, and with that they've introduced Minimum. Now Minimum itself is, at first glance, it just kind of looks like a really dumbed down shooter, I'd have to say. There's some blockiness, almost Minecrafty. It almost looks like a Roblox mixed with Transformers to me. But the visuals are not really the main draw of this game. The trailer that's up on our website, as you actually watch the trailer, there's things like crazy particle effects, and there's these huge Titan golems that fight each other for each team. There's a weapon upgrade system, and the scale of the game is absolutely ridiculous at times. Now, Oni Snake, did you get a chance to check out the trailer for the game?
I did check out the trailer, and I'm all for an FPS Minecraft.
And okay, just to back up, well, let's go a little bit reverse. I would say Minecraft isn't about the blocks. The blocks are definitely part of Minecraft, but I would say the idea of creating things is Minecraft. So I would sort of take a step back and say
that was interesting about this game. It actually seemed it was very similar to that from the way that the weapons were upgrading. It could be attributed to sort of the Minecraft upgrade system. Which actually would be cool if they had some way with like combining two different guns to make a new gun.
The only reason I really argue against saying it's a Minecraft-ish shooter in that sense of upgrading, or just in the block sense, is because you already have Ace of Spades, which, not the new version so much, but the old version of it was very much sort of like you build your bases and you can build tunnels and all that stuff, and that itself was, I would have to say, even Brick Force would be sort of Minecraft inspired in the creation of its levels, etc. This sort of looks more along the lines of
more visual looking Minecraft, not gameplay, but visually Minecraft looking.
Visually, it does have some elements, but I'd have to say that it also has a lot more roundish elements within the actual design. The levels, some of the weapons have rounded sides, so it's not quite
like circles.
I do like circles. I like my round edges. I like things that have curves. Just like, it's like I like my games like I like my women with curves. I don't know. Essentially, there are portions of it, graphically speaking, that aren't quite Minecraft-like. I would argue to say that it almost makes a little bit of a Lego feel to it, especially when you blow things up. There's kind of like bits of things that move around, and it almost looks like tiny blocks. But the actual gameplay mechanics of the game are quite interesting. So you have these two titans that fight over each other, and they're huge in comparison to the actual unit or your player. But you unfortunately don't get to control them yourself. You only influence them by killing other players and collecting sort of like their essence that drops, or killing the creatures in the environment. And speaking of creatures, fun. I think it's okay.
I want to be a giant red dinosaur.
Everybody wants to be a giant red dinosaur, man. And everybody wants to be giant golems smacking into each other. I mean, there was this old PlayStation 2 game. I forget the name of it. But I played the demo of it at a Walmart. I remember it vividly. And you essentially were like a kid or something. And you could sit on the shoulder, or you could sit on the ground. And it was from your perspective, but you were controlling this giant robot. It was amazing, and I thought that was possibly what they were going for here. If you could sort of like get enough points, you could unlock the ability to control the Titan or something like that. But no, you essentially influence its power, its amount of destructive force, by killing things in the environment, and that essence sort of powers and enforces its abilities. So it's a little bit disappointing, but did you read up at all, Oni Snake, on the actual abilities of the weapons in terms of like what you could do with them?
Unfortunately, I only was able to find 2, and they were very generic descriptions.
So I know there was like the exploding eye sniper and then the burning dual-wield katanas. But they say that you could actually power them up, so as you get kills, they power up. When they power up, they get additional bonuses or abilities. And the weapons themselves aren't just a typical machine gun, like we said before. They're eye snipers and dual-wield katanas, so you essentially have some very eccentric style weapons, which is really cool. And I don't know, I'm kind of looking forward to this. This is certainly, while we have had a ton of FPSs recently, and I mean 2012 was the year of FPSs, and 2013 is definitely looking like the year of the MOBAs, but Minimum seems to at least be taking a different approach to it all, and I think it'll be a welcome addition. Definitely not a normal militaristic shooter like we have a lot. Overall, the closed alpha testing was set to begin today, which is April 16th. But I read on their website that it actually has been delayed, so we don't know when the new alpha testing will begin, only that it will begin at some point. What were you saying, Oni Snake?
I say that it's definitely nice. We talked about it in previous episodes of having developers try something new and get out of the comfort zone.
Yeah. I mean, it has certainly elements of other games in it, but there are enough sort of unique charm aspects of the game, I'd say, to where I am definitely looking forward to seeing how it plays out. And because the graphics aren't actually that intense, I can definitely see a lot of players who don't have, the best systems, those that can't play Blacklight Retribution and such, being able to play Minimum with no problem. Alright, so overall, I'm going to go ahead and give this game a thumbs up. Oni Snake, I am sensing from you as a psychic that you will give this game a thumbs up as well.
It's giving a thumbs up. I'm always game for things breaking the mold.
Alrighty then. So we're going to go ahead and move forward to our next article where we're talking about Grimlands once again. I thought this game was dead as a doornail. It had already been buried. We'd had the funeral for it. There was even a memorial stone. We had left this, graveyard a long time ago. But no, this game has risen from the depths of the very place that we buried it, and it's now on Kickstarter. So Grimlands is attempting its zombie-like resurrection through Kickstarter. And Oni Snake, what would you think that a game like this would actually cost to finish? An ambitious Fallout-esque MMO RPG.
The problem is I don't know how far along they are, though. I mean, they said it's almost finished. Keep in mind,
it's almost finished, and it's been in beta, closed beta, for about a year. So typically when you're in closed beta, all of the major systems and functions of the game are finished. You're only bug testing at that point. That is generally what closed beta is.
They're asking for 650,000.
Yeah. 650,000. $650,000 to finish this game.
I would say maybe they need a bit more, maybe 800,000.
I would say that 600,000 seems a little bit on the high end, just in general. Like, if they're supposed to be almost done, as they claim to be in the Kickstarter video, if you watch it, you can watch it on MMOBomb.com under the article. If they claim to be as far along as they should be, $650,000 is a little bit high. I would say something more realistically like $50,000 to $100,000 if they're supposed to be this far along. If you're just dealing with bug testing a lot, you're not going to be churning out as much concept art or actual models, etc. So an art is really, especially in an MMO, a large portion of your budget. So if we're dealing with just programming, etc., I wouldn't imagine $650,000. We could add in some marketing stuff and server upkeep, etc. But I certainly wouldn't think $650,000 would be a realistic approach. And I'm guessing
that they aren't as close as they're saying they are.
Yeah, that's sort of the red flag. That's immediately sort of a red flag. That I think that they're just trying to give people hope that it could be completed quickly. But I think the amount that they're asking for is really what is indicative of how far along they actually are. And plus, it was in closed beta for an entire year. And I would have to say that Gamigo, if they close the development of it after it been in beta for an entire year, you may, you can get onto them for closing a game, after spending so much money on it or whatever. But it is, they are a publisher, and they may have seen that the game wasn't nearing completion like it should have been. I have a theory that the company just wasn't, or sorry, I should actually explain that the company that developing the game is Drago Entertainment, which is a Poland company, a Poland-based company, development team. And I would suspect, this is just a hunch, that they weren't as far along at that point after a year of closed beta as Gamigo would have liked. And the Gamigo just wasn't wanting to invest that much extra money to finish the game. That is my hunch. This is all just based on the fact that they're asking for so much and saying that the game is just around the corner of being released, essentially, just a few months. A few months, we should already be in open beta at a few months point, But let's look at a little bit of their rewards. If we take a look here, they're offering, the standard sort of early access. You get head start stuff, unique in-game items, and like assault rifles and whatnot.
Your premium account.
Yeah, premium account. What is this?
It's looking like they're going the way of DCUO, where you're not seem like you're getting access to the full content of the game unless you pay part of the premium account.
Yeah, I honestly just don't see, from the reward perspective and all that, and they only have $33,000, almost $34,000 with 15 days to go. It's obviously not going to make its goal, and I think it may finally lay in pieces in its grave, as sort of being shunned a second time, that the gamers just don't want to invest in something that looks like it's this far along and it's supposed to be much farther. I certainly wouldn't want to. But I'm going to go...
A lot of them are trying to get off the Skullgirls success.
Yeah, that is true.
And that and Tim Schafer's project have been the two most successful video game Kickstarters.
Tim Schafer's was, for the longest time, the most successful. There's been several successful since then, including Star Drive, I believe. Not Star Drive. What is it? It's Star... I forget the name, but it is a...
You gotta look it up.
I gotta look it up. I'm looking at it right now. I'm on Kickstarter's page trying to find it up. But it was a space simulation game that had garnered something like $4 to $6 million in total funding. And I believe Tim Schafer's game at that point, it only garnered about $2 million. So there's a lot of good support for games, obvious support for games in Kickstarter. It's not like Kickstarter is suddenly not working. Yeah, it looks like the most ever funded was for Torment Tides of Numenera, which is $4,188,000.
That's not even checking Indiegogo either.
Yeah, that's Indiegogo, generally speaking, has lower successful rates than Kickstarter because it is the Canadian version. But nonetheless, it's still very successful games. And overall, I'm gonna have to give a downvote to Grimlands. You just need to put it to rest, man. You need to realize when to move forward, and I know you spend all this time, but you're either gonna have to come clean and work on it on the side, or just ask for a lot less, or just fund it yourselves, because there is not the support. Not to say that there isn't a support for a Fallout type MMO. We've seen definitely a lot of people jump on the bandwagon of liking Severium, which is the sort of Stalker 2-esque MMORPG that's free to play coming out. But Grimlands just looks a little bit too clunky for the time. So I'm going to go ahead and give it a thumbs down. And Oni Snake, what about you?
It actually gets a thumbs up for giving it one last chance, letting the players decide if it will live or not. Now, whether that is up to the players, but at least they're trying. They're not completely shutting down. Okay. So it gets an A for effort.
Okay, I would say that they do get props for trying, but I feel like they needed to look at their game from a more realistic approach, which is something that I feel that they didn't do well.
Yeah, most likely will not succeed, but at least we can give them props for trying.
Yeah, everybody can get props for trying.
You'll get a cookie, but go back and make me a batch of brownies.
Something like that. Like, you've made me a cookie, but I didn't want a cookie to begin with.
I wanted a brownie.
I wanted a brownie. I wanted a big black brownie. Big
fudge brownie, yeah.
Yes, exactly. So our third article of the night is dealing with Prime World, which is actually, oh my gosh, another MOBA opening up closed beta registration.
Way.
I know, right? Now, to its credit, it looks a little bit different from a lot of the other MOBAs that we've been talking about. It is based in somewhat of a fantasy land, but it has more RPG and almost castle building elements to it. The way it differs primarily is that it's not focused on the normal tri-lane map configuration found in LoL, Dota, Smite, etc. Most MOBAs that try to copy off of that formula. Instead, they are sort of going for a more stylistic approach where they have different maps, up to 6 maps, I believe, or 6 game modes rather, for the main release. I do believe that they will have a tri-lane map available in the game, but it won't be the primary focus. So they're going to go with other game modes. There's going to be castle building elements where you can build buildings in your castle, in your kingdom, that grant you new upgrades for your specific heroes, or you'll get bonuses to gold or something like that. And then there's individual persistent upgradable heroes that have all unique features. So you can essentially get a hero, and unlike League of Legends, for example, where you have a hero with static abilities, you can customize this hero with different abilities and sort of change how they're overall played, while still having some of the unique aspects of that individual hero. That is how I understand it. And it looks actually pretty interesting from that perspective. There even seemed to be some type of procedurally changed or dynamic environment, rather, where the environment can go from like a lush forest to a barren wasteland. And I think I may have seen the hint that your individual castles can be used as bases that get raided in some game modes. It looked like the actual castles and your kingdoms actually became a part of the game in some respects. So I think that would be a really awesome approach. I'm looking forward to actually trying it out myself. This is one of the only MOBAs other than, I think, the Total War MOBA and the Infinite Crisis DC Universe MOBA that actually has me sort of excited. And this one has me excited just for its game mechanics alone, I'd have to say. And the ability or the attempt of it to try to do different style of maps and game modes to start with. What about you, Oni?
It almost seems like it's not even becoming a MOBA anymore, and more going to be MMO with MOBA style fights.
Well, I would argue against that, because I would see a MMO most of the time as something that has a persistent sort of a lobby-based system where players can hang around, chat, queue up together, form parties. And while there is sort of those chat lobbies in League of Legends and Dota 2, and I'm assuming also in Prime World, it's not sort of like there's no persistent overworld sort of feature, although it has persistent elements to it. But every game has persistent elements. It's multiplayer, it seems. Even Call of Duty has persistent elements. But I would argue that it is still a MOBA in that you still get placed in a battle arena, which is part of the MOBA term. And you still most likely, I do know, have creeps that move across the map. And I think those are some of the main sort of telltale signs of a MOBA.
As long as those keep farm Eternity Force, or whatever item costs a bunch and does
whatever is the equivalent of tons of damage in Prime World.
Whatever does tons of damage. I think in Dota that's the Divine Rapier. And
yes, that is the Divine Rapier.
Got Trinity Force in League and Smite. I don't. Does Smite have the damages weapon?
I don't even know. I know they have pretty big damage weapons, but I don't think it is quite like what the whiz bang features of a Divine Rapier and then Trinity Force. Oh well, I would argue that a Divine Rapier is a little bit more of tons of damage than a Trinity Force, because
for what team, yours or theirs?
Yeah, that is one thing, because it actually drops on your death. That is a very good argument for that. But I would definitely say that it is
tons of damage.
It is extreme damage. I think it's like 200 damage that you get.
I think it's 250 actually.
250, yeah, exactly. It's quite a lot. Needless to say, it's intense.
I will keep my eye on this game though.
I will give it a thumbs up.
I love games that get out of there, out of the sandbox.
Yeah. I'm never, while I may get tired of games of a certain genre, if something in a genre that I'm tired of has some unique feature that I'd like to explore, I will never deny myself the pleasure of trying it out and experiencing that feature, just because it's in a genre that I have played multiple games of the same genre from.
Will have to fail on its own.
So I'm giving this a thumbs up. Are you giving this a thumbs up or a hold?
I'm giving it a hold. I want to find out more about it.
I completely understand. I get it. There's the burnout sort of feeling that you're getting. You're like, oh man, I've just digested too many MOBAs recently. I just can't give this a thumbs up right now. I just don't know how it'll be. I totally get it. That's my sort of story for the feeling that you get. Yeah. Okay. Our next.
Now we get the fun one. I'm a D&D player.
You're spoiling it. I haven't even introduced it yet. So we have Neverwinter getting open beta launch date. Finally, set for April 30th, which according to my clock is 2 weeks away from today. So in 2 weeks on Tuesday, April 30th, there will be the open beta launch date. Now there will be no character wipes from that point on. And you'll have access to everything in the game, including the Foundry. So we just had the last closed beta on last weekend, and now the game is completely shut down up until April 30th, when everybody can jump in the game. So you're looking forward to this, Oni Snake? Are you a big D&D player?
I'm actually kind of against it, honestly.
You're against the game?
From what I've seen for the game, it might just be the D&D nerd talking, but the way the classes are being done just doesn't feel right.
What doesn't feel right about it then?
One of the biggest problems I've ever had is, and unless maybe I played it a long time ago, or maybe I'm thinking of the different Neverwinter, because do you know what I mean? Neverwinter, there has been out there Neverwinter Nights, Neverwinter, all over the place. So yeah, you have to correct me if I got the wrong game, but one of the problems is basically the paladin-like class, the healer tank.
Correct.
Is that they never gets that correct feel. In D&D, that's basic. The paladin and the cleric play completely different roles, but most people's idea of a paladin is he's up there doing the damage and healing at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
But that's actually what the cleric does in the game. The paladin is just a glorified tank who can somewhat heal, but barely.
So you're basically you're when you're speaking of the paladin, you're speaking of the guardian.
It doesn't really...
But the cleric itself, though, I would argue the cleric doesn't actually go up into the fray. The cleric actually stands in the back. It isn't really up in the fray and fires from afar.
The cleric doesn't get in there like he does in actual D&D.
Oh, so the cleric isn't melee.
Yeah, the cleric, he has a shield, sword, armor. He's up there. He has to use touch spells. And it's, I like to see... I figured that a D&D game would make a healing class that actually, is up there. Because we have so many stuff with healer that stays in the back and heals, and being a WoW healer and Guild Wars healer. Yes, I was a Guild Wars healer. I know it's weird. I know it's weird to find a healing-oriented Guild Wars player, but I actually did it.
That's impressive. So you like to be up in the fray, then?
I like to be a healing class that the more damage I do, the more my allies can get healed.
Seems like you should have played the Pandarian Monk in WoW. Like, isn't their latest...
They do a really good job of healing, but most of the time they're just kind of sitting in the back healing too.
Oh, so they're not even up in the fight. Weren't they supposed to be like kicking and screaming and whatnot and healing?
They can be up kicking and shooting, but sometimes have to stay in the back so they don't get hit by the AoE cleave. I hate melee ability.
Ah, I see what you're saying.
Everyone has that MO, but I guess I think it's the D&D nerd in me that's got. It's just kind of going.
So you feel like they've just basically made it much more like a traditional MMO.
Traditional MMO, and not taking the rich lore that Dungeons and Dragons have.
Really, you don't think it's actually taking the lore that Dungeons and Dragons has, or it's just not taking the mechanics that Dungeons and Dragons has?
For the lore, a lot of the lore is... Well, I guess let's clarify. Lore in D&D is actually a lot of what the player creates. So I guess in that sense, they can keep the lore, they can make it, but definitely mechanics. But it's hard to make a pen and paper mechanic that has so much player input into an actual game that won't, make someone mad.
Yeah, that's the one thing. Like, one thing I argued with another person, I didn't argue, but I expressed to another person about this exact same topic, is that you have to look at it from the perspective of they can't just make D&D online. Like, they have to make sacrifices in both departments, both in the MMO department and in the D&D department, to create a action-oriented MMO that is inspired by D&D, in this case Neverwinter campaign, but still retains elements that are fun and streamlined for players who aren't just hardcore D&D players. And I feel like they do make certain... I feel like it was a mistake to not make it as open world. At least what I've seen is not as open world as I would have liked for the MMO, but I'd still feel that the actual gameplay itself is intriguing, and some of the actual lore is intriguing as well. World of Warcraft has been like one of the only MMORPGs where I felt actually connected to the lore, and I feel like if I was to invest a lot of time in Neverwinter, Cryptic would do a good job of making me feel invested into the story as to why Neverwinter is being assaulted. And then on top of that, you have, of course, the Foundry, which allows a ton of players to create their own content, to make their own storylines, and I feel like that adds so much replayability to the game.
That right there, definitely that D&D feel, but we haven't gotten to mess with the Foundry too much yet.
Well, yeah, the Foundry wasn't really available until recently, but from all respects, from all angles that I've seen of it, it is very impressive, and it essentially gives players the exact same tools the developer used. You can place units, you can write storyline quests, dialogue, you can place rewards, hidden treasures. You can essentially create the dungeon as if you were the dungeon master.
And they're going to be shareable, aren't they?
Some of them are good, some of them are bad. There's a social ranking feature where players can actually rank how good it is, and you can choose when things are triggered, when doors open, when monsters spawn, what the monsters are, how much HP they have, how hard they are. You can change all of that. There's a lot of robust features. It's not just streamlined and dumbed down. When I've looked at it, it actually looked very in-depth, and I would highly recommend checking that out if you like building your own sort of like storylines.
The Dungeon of Magical Unicorns, and it will be the hardest dungeon ever.
You could do it. You could do that, and you could just have tons of guys in there, and it would take people forever to try to do it, and then people would downvote you and say it was the hardest thing in the world.
Some people like a challenge.
A lot of people like a challenge, but it's a challenge that feels like it's not just challenging because there's a ton of mobs. It's challenging because it's the combination of mobs or the placement, not just how many they can actually throw at you at once. Anybody can do that. It's creating it where it feels like it can be beat, but not easily. Not something that you just feel like you could never beat it just because there's so many enemies. That's the challenge of balancing.
The good days of playing Korean MMOs.
Ah, yes.
Banging your head against the wall.
With those things, I just feel like so much grind. That's not challenging. It's just so long.
It's just, yeah, Final Fantasy 11 during the early days, all that grind. It took me a month to get 8 levels.
Oh, man. I do not miss that. Some people like that style. I do not miss that at all.
I thought I missed it until I tried it again. It was like, yeah, I don't miss this at all.
So speaking of Asian, first of all, I'm going to go ahead and give Neverwinter my thumbs up. I've been pretty much giving thumbs. Oh, I would have to say I forgot about Grimlands. I gave that a thumbs down. But I'm going to give Neverwinter a tentative thumbs up. I've only played to about level 20 or 30 or so. The game goes up to level 60, I believe. And I like what I see so far. I'm a little bit hesitant in terms of the actual quest lines. Some of them are good, some of them are more typical. But I will be giving it a legitimate try. I'm going to try to play it with my wife and a couple of friends. And we'll see actually how it pans out. I definitely think it is a party game. I think you can have a lot of fun as a party with friends playing Neverwinter. So tentative thumbs up for me.
It's definitely getting a thumbs up for me for the Foundry aspect. The Foundry aspect is enough alone to get rid of any other faults it has.
That's fair enough. I think that's a good assumption or a good statement as to what it is in its current state.
But if it doesn't do well, then it will have disappointed me.
Well, you're going to have to check out the Foundry. Why don't you do this? Why don't, when it comes out, you check out the Foundry, and then you can give me your A-bomb or D-bomb about the Foundry. We're just going to go ahead and plot that one in the future there, all right?
And that's 5 days after my birthday, too.
5 days? Oh, there you go. So it's like a belated birthday gift.
Yep.
So speaking of Asian MMOs, Age of Wushu launched in North America recently.
Wushu, pass me that potion.
What? What'd you say?
It's a Master Yi joke from League of Legends. Wushu, pass me that potion.
Wushu, oh, won't you?
Because he's Master Wuju.
I see what you did. Aha, gotcha.
We had to get that joke in there sometime.
I just flew over my head. Sorry about that.
Oh.
Very quickly. So yeah, Age of Wushu launched on April 10th. There was actually a lot of sort of controversy regarding the game and whether or not it was pay to win, based off of all the bonuses that you got and all the sort of glitches that the game had during the beta period. And we actually caught up to Snail Games not too long ago and interviewed them to discuss some of the changes that they would be making for the North American version of the game. Keep in mind, North America and European are being published by two separate companies. Snail Games handling North America, while I believe... I forget exactly who... G Potato, I believe, is handling Age of Wushu in Europe. I'm going to check that right now. But yeah, essentially, so we talked to them. We asked them what exactly they were doing to handle the transition, because there's a lot of text complaints that the text wasn't exactly formatted correctly. Yes, G Potato is handling Age of Wushu in Europe. Just type that in. They complained that some of their items were disappearing. Some items weren't permanent. Some cosmetic items that you purchased in the cash shop actually weren't permanent, which had a lot of people up in arms. And it is apparently a feature that the Chinese MMOs have quite often. And there was also a lot of confusion with the UI. So we addressed a lot of those things in the actual interview, and I highly suggest checking it out. Now, a sort of comical thing, and Oni Snake, is the fact that Jet Li is supposed to be part of this MMO, right?
Yep.
So there's going to be a retail version you can buy of this, April 23rd, at places like GameStop and whatever. You'll be able to buy a hard copy of Age of Wushu. And it's going to feature VIP access, in-game currency, unique fashion sets and mounts, and you can train with Jet Li, quote-unquote Jet Li.
So he'll give you a quest, right?
I am assuming you do something with him.
Jet Li will tell you, go kill me 10 rats.
Yes.
And you will come back, and Jet Li will say, good job. Now, go get me a piece of cloth.
Yeah, Jet Li. Are you going to actually fight Jet Li? Like, no.
Now, Jet Li voiced the quest. I think that's pretty interesting.
It would be pretty cool. I mean, I wouldn't buy it just to see that. Like, you get a single-player exclusive area called Twilight Village Adventure. And I guess maybe that sounds like some kind of like happy like quest area, like Twilight Village Adventure, like something like in Disney World, Disneyland. Yeah, do you want to go to?
Called it Twilight Village.
I know, why adventure? Adventure makes me think of like Disneyland or Disney World. Like, let's go in the Twilight Village Adventure area, guys. You know,
I love this ride.
I love this ride. It's so great. Jet Li is in it. He's gonna teach me how to be a kung fu master. Like, that's just what it reminds me of. It sounds too cheesy, but yeah, Jet Li is in it if you purchase the retail copy of the game. How do you think this is going to do? Or how do you think this is doing?
It's seeming, honestly, nothing really too out there. Another safe MMO that we have.
Yeah. It's tab targeting. I mean, there's like a lot of schools
It makes me think of Silk Road Online.
It kind of has that visual vibe to it a little bit. In some cases, I think the coloring does. But there's don't get me wrong, there's some areas in Age of Wushu that actually look really beautiful. Some of the landscape is pretty amazing. But there's a lot of it that when you get up close, it just does not look very nice. From afar, like landscape, that looks good. But up close, it's a little bit clunky. The interfaces, like I said, were pretty clunky. And the actual combat was at times extremely clunky. PvP too, and PvP is a big part of this game. A lot of it didn't feel very skillful when you dealt with big battles. It just kind of felt like whoever had the biggest group won, essentially. So I didn't do anything for me. I was kind of looking forward to it, but a lot of it it felt like they just took a bunch of, skills for a tab target MMO and tried to cram them into one player and be like, yeah, you could do all of this at one time. And it just came off as
one-touch palm death strike.
I know, like it's 5-finger, like bam.
Even WoW has that move.
What does it do though? What's the animation? You just hit them.
It's the monk has it, and there's a glyph for it after you use it. But the main one is that he takes his fingers in a little straight hand and then stabs it in them, and they die.
Really?
And if you have the glyph, they'll then bow to the opponent afterwards.
They'll die and bow to the opponent,
and then they'll bow to the dead guy.
Oh wow! But does it? How do you know it'll kill someone though? Like,
It's is
it like an execution move, or
if the enemy has less health than your character, it will kill them. And
at any
point,
point,
and it does work on bosses.
At any point. Does it have to
At
be
any point, as long as they have less health than you.
There's no way. As long as they have less health than you. So you could do that like at the start of a fight. You could like kill them at the start of the fight.
If the mob has less health than you, it will automatically kill them.
Oh, it's only for a mob, not a player.
No, it doesn't work in PvP.
Oh, that's what I was about to say. Like that would be like the most broken ability ever.
No, they do have a move where all the damage you get dealt gets sent right back to them. So.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
I mean, the WoW Monk was a really good design hero. I really liked the Monk play. It got me back into WoW for a bit.
I made sure. I still look at MMO Champion at times to check it out, but
we all do.
We all do.
No,
you never can escape from it completely. You all look back at it occasionally, like, what are they up to? And I still look at raid fights and see like what they're doing and stuff. Yeah. But yeah, I'm still waiting for the next WoW-ish type thing for me. For
my Asian MMO, I think I'd rather stick to Final Fantasy.
Final Fantasy, the new one that's coming out, or just the old one?
Honestly, I'd say 11.
11.
The new one, plus the new one you have to pay for.
Oh, that's true. That is true.
It's not free to play.
Well, I mean, even 11 wasn't free to play, but you had to buy it.
It changed to it though.
You can't just download the game right now.
Well, no, you can't. I guess I had a previous copy, so maybe that's why they let me.
You do have to
or maybe they messed up my account because I got to log on for free after 2 years.
Maybe, I don't know. I'm not too sure. I never really got into it. But I'm going to go ahead and give Age of Wushu a thumbs down. I do not think it is where it needs to be, nor do I think it is something. Don't get me wrong, there's some people that don't mind tab targeting and whatnot, and I think it certainly is an ambition in MMO, but I don't think that it pulls it off. I think there's too much clumsiness in it, and I don't think it's all of Snail Games' fault. I think a lot of the MMO just has that innately in it, and Snail Games has been working to try to correct a lot of that for the Western market. But I just don't think the Age of Wushu style of play right now is conducive to a fun time for Western market, for people in Europe, for people in North America. It'll have its audience, but I think it fell short of what its lofty goals were in terms of what it wanted to be.
It's gonna get my first ever meh shake.
Meh shake?
The meh shake.
What's the meh shake?
The meh shake is it didn't fail spectacularly, but it didn't wow. It's just a standard, average, run-of-the-mill, taking up cookie out of the cookie jar.
I don't know why, but when you said meh shape, it sounded like you were making like a livestock sound, like meh.
It's kind of like putting your hand down, going meh. I guess it's good, but it's bad. I don't know.
That reminds me of like a sheep. You're just like meh.
There we go. It's a sheep. It's following everything else.
It's a sheep that walks up and just goes meh, and then it just walks off.
Man, take some of WoW's grass, and then goes over to Age of Conan, takes some of his grass, and then kind of gets his own little nest of grass. Just by taking from other people's grass.
He just has everybody. It's just like a clump of grass in one area. It's like the grass is always greener on the other side, but this grass is actually from your side that's been moved over there. So that when you get over there, you're just like, it's the same thing I've already seen.
Yeah.
All right. So moving on then to the weekly bombs, we're going to go ahead and drop in here. Now, I should mention right before we do that if you would like to participate, we do have currently a few closed betas going on. You can get some keys for Marvel Heroes closed beta. The test will run, hopefully by the time this gets up, it'll run from this Friday, April 19th, until April 21st, which is the Sunday. So if you work quickly, or if this gets placed up as quickly as I hope it will be, you will be able to jump into that. That is the current only beta giveaway going on, although, like I said before, we do have a couple of good interviews for you to check out. Oh, I believe there's also an Age of Wushu gift pack that is available as well. So if you do want to play Age of Wushu, you will be able to get some gift packs which give you some coins, some other random pills, stuff that honestly I don't know what it does, but you can grab those keys from MMOBomb. So like I said before, we're going ahead and move on to the weekly bombs. Now, I will go ahead and start this. And this actually deals with one of the interviews that I had. Not the Age of Wushu interview, because the Age of Wushu interview I feel was done honestly. And despite the fact that I feel like the game fell short, I felt like the developers were or the publishers, Snail Games, was as upfront as possible about everything in their attempts to fix it. I just think that it was a little bit short of what it needed to be. but this is actually deals with the Scarlet Blade interview that we recently posted. So I sent them some questions in regards to the game and how it was being marketed towards what audience, and also some of the main complaints that players actually playing the game had. So I brought up these different interview questions for us to discuss, and Area Games just kind of ignored the questions at times and straight out talked about other things, or just completely deflected the questions. Now publishers, that is not what you do when you get interviewed. If you want people to look at your company and say, wow, these guys are upfront, these guys are honest, if they want to make an MMO for people who want to see boobs, then just come out and say that, right? Don't try to argue that this is an MMORPG for everyone and that they try to make it something that anyone would want to play. That's obviously not what Scarlet Blade is. We've gone over this many times, and I don't like beating a dead horse about what Scarlet Blade does wrong, but this more along the lines of just deals with what publishers do wrong when trying to convey accurate and honest and open information to people who interviewed them. So I would highly recommend checking out the actual interview, because you can just see how if you ever get interviewed as a game developer or a publisher, never ever answer questions like they do. Only Snake, you read this, right?
Yeah, I was sometimes asking, it's like, wait, when did he ask that? What's going on?
Yeah. There was times where they would just go off on a tangent and talk about something completely different, unrelated to the question, without actually addressing the question.
And then some of the questions just didn't give any answer. It's like, here's the question. It's like, yada, yada, yada. Oh, look, shiny.
Okay, so one thing is that I'll bring up as a good example on what they did wrong. So, first question out the gate. Can you start by telling us who you're targeting as an audience for Scarlet Blade? All right? When I asked this question, and this was done through email, so this wasn't done face-to-face or anything like that. But when I asked this question, I was wanting to know if they would come out and just say, we're targeting towards males who like a scantily clad, or like a MMO like this, that enjoy MMORPGs but want, a more adult themed or something. That would have been a logical response. Instead, they just quote their closed beta survey that says their gender ratio is 85% male and 15% female, but we're inviting anyone of legal age to play an ESRB M-rated title. I don't know why you had to tell me what it was rated. I understood that it was a mature MMO. But come take a look and give Scarlet Blade a try. Most people who've tried it are surprised to find that there's much more to the game than its pretty exterior.
So who are they targeting? I guess everyone of legal age. So...
Everyone of legal age, apparently.
So what's the legal age? Are we talking legal age of voting, legal age of drinking, legal age of
I'm assuming they're talking North American, since they're based in North America. I'm assuming a legal age of 18 as considered an adult, as rated by the ESRB, which is 18 legal age to play M-rated games. 17 or 18, I believe.
I hope they have a good way to check those ages, because how often have you gone to those sites that says, what's your age to see this trailer? And I just pop in any random number.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I was born January 5th on 1921.
In every game that I've ever signed up for.
Yeah, and then I can see the God of War trailer.
Yeah, I was born... There's sometimes I've seen those things where it was like, you can put it all the way to the 1800s, and I'm like, yes, I was born in the 1800s. I was born before I was even capable of knowing what video games were. All right.
What's TV?
What's a TV? What's electricity?
What's the internet?
All right, so what is your A-bomb or D-bomb this week, Oni?
I get my D-bomb for... It is a console game.
Okay.
And Justice Gods Among Us just came out today. It's NetherRealm Studios has made a DC fighting game.
And NetherRealms are the same guys that made the latest Mortal Kombat.
That did the Mortal Kombat reboot. Mm-hmm. So that's a DC fighting game in the form of Mortal Kombat style fighting, but all the characters, there is no clones at all. You can interact entirely with the stage. The stage is destructible, transitional stages. The supers actually feel like a super. And I just love playing Green Lantern. It's got a full roster. It's got an alternate universe. And I got the collector's edition, so I got a cool statue and comic book. But they also did release it with a 12-issue comic book series.
So if you are a comic book nerd, then I assume.
Yeah, I like my comic books. Although I don't know if Marvel or DC is better. I like them both.
Hey, I'm not judging here. I play tabletop games, man. We're all nerds here. It's a common way to describe it. Yes, you are a comic book enthusiast. I can say connoisseur, if you will.
I am indeed.
All right, so that's nice. So we got a Justice Da-Bomb, and then of course we got an A-Bomb for area games. Moving on to you guys, the member bombs. We've got oh my gosh, Eununsunt.
It sounds like something from Skyrim.
Hi, my name is Eununsunt. And he's like, I'd like to give a da-bomb to Portalus Games, which as far as I know is only 3 guys, for picking up Pirates of the Burning Sea. I really hope they bring some changes and maybe disable the premium features to make the game real free-to-play and not freemium, or at least tone it down a little bit. Pirates of the Burning Seas is an awesome game, which is in dire need of more players. I actually have never played Pirates of the Burning Sea, so I'm not...
I've heard of it.
I've heard of it, correct. I have actually never played it. The only sort of pirate-themed MMO that I've ever played, not counting Pirate 101, which is more of just a cutesy fantasy children's pirate MMO, would be Cartuga, and that was all based, of course, on a ship. So I have not played it, but everybody, go check it out. Get some more players in this, and tell the developers to make it less, freemium. That is, if the game is worth it. I don't know if the game is worth it. I couldn't tell you. Oni Snake, why don't you go ahead and take on the next one?
I get Tyrael. He has a bomb for free-to-play titles getting onto Steam, reaching out to more people that way. As an example, some of my friends didn't know about Warframe until they saw it on Steam, and now you can't drag them from it. I have got to agree. The Steam platform being a midway point for free-to-play games, it's a great way to download it. People go through their Steam. It's an easy way to search. I didn't know about Warframe or Dragon's Nest until I looked through on Steam, and I'm really excited for that. And you can get ArcheBlade on there, too.
Yeah, there's quite a few games that you can get on Steam, and to me, it just makes sense. I mean, especially with free-to-play games that you're connected online anyways, for the most part. Steam just makes it an easy way to... If you have a community of friends that you play with free-to-play games and they're all on Steam, even if you're in a brand different game, you guys can communicate, you can, queue up together and do things together, even if you're in separate games, And of course, each of these games has their own community, but with the Steam overlay and all that community stuff built in with the forums and discussions, it really makes for a centralized location. I would definitely say I would give a da-bomb to Steam as well for creating that whole free-to-play division. I really like Steam. It is a great service, and some people argue that it's DRM, but it's really in DRM in the most minimalist sense.
Come now, we're not Origin over here.
I know, right now. Come on, we're not that orange little Q, or it's an orange O, I guess you could say. It looks like a Q because it has that flip.
I should probably add a da-bomb for EA getting voted worst company again for the 2nd year in a row.
Yeah, since we don't have a third person, you can add that da-bomb. So EA got. But at this point in the year, though, you do have to realize that EA is an online-based game. The second runner-up was Bank of America, whose fan base of theirs, or I guess you could say hate base, is not as online-based as EA's followers
online
are.
hate base.
Yeah. It's certainly not it's a little bit skewed in that sense, but I certainly don't think they should at least be. They should still be first or second because of what they've done. I have seen a lot of just face palmy stuff over the last year or so, but you can't really read those numbers too accurately, I'd have to say. But moving on to our last member bomb, we have Zetmek, who says a da-bomb for ArcheBlade. The game is really awesome once you get to know your positions, learn to kite, evade, and juggle, as well as block. Yes, it still needs balance IMO, but I have high hopes that ArcheBlade will be a great MOBA alternative once it gets released. And
it definitely needs that balance.
Yeah, it needs the balance. There's some people who argue that it doesn't, but I'm going to have to say it still does. And this is coming from a guy who likes the team, who has actually done some stuff for them. Some people were asking me before Like, they're like, you sound like the guy from the introductory video of ArcheBlade, and that is because I am the guy from the introductory video of ArcheBlade. They asked me to. Based in Korea. They don't speak English well, and they asked someone that they knew who did online stuff for free to play to record that for them. So of course I did that with them, and they're a nice bunch of guys. And I feel like the game tries to be different and it tries to be original. And I feel like if they made those adjustments to the payment model, which I do believe they're eventually going to be implementing currency, so you can actually purchase the fighters without the use of real money, as well as have experience and levels.
The skins are okay to keep as money, but
yeah,
getting rid of gameplay basics for money is no way to go.
You just have to realize that the game technically hasn't launched yet. It's using Steam's early access feature, which basically means that players can start playing the alpha or beta of a game, and it's currently in beta still. But it is a small team. I know that they're in fact. And they're nice guys, and I do feel like they are working on getting the game where players want it to be. And I think once it reaches that point, if it still has a community behind it, it will be in a good place. So that goes it for our member bombs. But let's go ahead and then flip on over to our weekly questions from viewers. So last week's question was, what game did you most look forward to that ended up being canceled, and why? So Irvine Spiegel, not to be compared, maybe Smeagol's long-lost brother or something like that. He says, Dungeon Lords Orb of the Oracle DL was a buggy and broken game, but when you play it on LAN with a few friends, it's an epic. Then you play the fan mods, even more epic. Honestly, this is the only game in my entire life that has been canceled before release that I have been sad about. I wish they released the source code so me and some other dedicated fans can finish the game on our own coin and time. Actually, I've never heard of Dungeon Lords Orb of the Oracle. I wonder when that was released. If it says back when you could play it on LAN, that is a while ago. Obviously, when LAN used to be the most popular form of multiplayer. Man, I remember lugging my computer all over town.
All downstairs to the cafeteria or...
Man, when I built my first computer, I bought a case that was specifically built for LAN parties, like where you had straps and you could actually lug it with straps around, because that's how people would bring their computers around, and everybody would just hook them up together and we'd all play in the same room. Nobody really played online as much.
Laptop.
Yeah, but your laptop was bulky and weighed a ton. So why don't you go ahead and take the second weekly question?
I've got Robert Stojanowski. Pronounce that right?
Stojanowski.
Stalker 2. I was very disappointed when they decided to cancel development of the game and the Stalker franchise altogether. I hope that Servarium will be a good replacement.
I hope so too, but I honestly don't feel like it will be in that respect. I think it'll be good at what it's going to be, but I don't think people should go into the game expecting it to be Stalker, because Stalker was a single-player game for the most part. You know, it was very much based around the whole storyline. And this one's going to be an MMO FPS, which means there's multiple people running around at once, which certainly breaks away from the whole, crouching stealth aspect of Stalker. Not to say this variant won't be a good game. I still think it's going to be a good game. Very good post-apocalyptic inspired shooter from what I've seen. But I wouldn't say or wouldn't try to compare it to Stalker. I think it'll have elements of it, but I would say I was very disappointed as well with Stalker 2's cancellation. I thought Stalker was a very good post-apocalyptic shooter, something that went right up there with Fallout. Did you ever play Stalker?
I unfortunately did not play Stalker.
You should download it. It's a good game. It's difficult. It's very difficult, but it's a good game. At least it was difficult when I played it last, which was like years ago. So
you want to get laughing material?
I will get laughing material, which is the third and final weekly question. He says, Soul Master. They said for 3 years beta phase and still no word to this very day. Not even the decency to tell us if Soul Master is closed or not. So he didn't even get to see Soul Master here, and they didn't even give him the decency of telling him what was happening with Soul Master. That is, of course, the game from Gamigo. It's a unique blend of RTS and RPG. And so it would be like an MMO RTS RPG or something like that. Memortitis RPG, something like that. I can't put all those abbreviations together. But yeah, it was supposed to come out from Gamigo. It had different character classes, non-targeting combat system, resource-driven RTS combat. and some other of the typical PvP modes like free for all and team deathmatch, etc. So yeah, they just, I guess it's not going to come out. Last time there was news on it was in 2010, I guess you could say. So it's been quite a while. But all right, so that goes ahead and answers our weekly questions from our viewers. Now the question for this week is, with the recent outburst of MOBAs and FPS games, what genres do you feel need more free-to-play love? So 2012, year of the shooters. 2013, it's only March or April. Well, I am tired. It's only April, and we have absolute tons of MOBAs being announced. What genre do you feel needs a little bit more love, a little bit more attention, I guess you could say?
We need some more adventure games.
Adventure games? No, what do you mean by adventure games?
Stuff like Sam & Max, Grim Fandango, Attack the Tentacles.
All right, I would agree with that.
Point-and-click adventure games or story-driven, like The Walking Dead could be considered
an adventure game.
You played the Xbox one. Games like that.
I guess I could just see that. I could see that as needing more love, but I was thinking more along the lines of free-to-play love.
It would be interesting to see a free-to-play type of adventure game, although I would admit they're mostly single-player experience.
Yes. See, that's the thing. Like, you could make a point for what kind of genres need more games in general, which in your case, adventure. But when you deal with free-to-play, then you have to deal with the fact that most games are going to be multiplayer in some respect. I think there could be more in-depth turn-based strategy games. We've seen like a rise in turn-based strategy games recently, and a lot of them have been very good. We have XCOM, Enemy Unknown. We have a lot of like the Heroes of Might and Magic stuff. We have a lot of games, especially through Kickstarter, that are coming up recently that are turn-based, that are getting a lot of support. Even Shadowrun, the new Shadowrun game that's coming out, that's based on an RPG, a tabletop, that's having a turn-based game. But we don't see as many equivalent in quality turn-based strategy games coming out in the free-to-play market, not recently at least. So I definitely think that the strategy turn-based market, and just strategy in general, dealing with RTS, we had End of Nations that was supposedly come out, but it's been sort of canned right now. And then we have, at some point, Command & Conquer that's going to come out, although I don't think it will be as deep an experience that I would like. I certainly think that the strategy market in general, with a little bit of biasness towards turn-based, could use some fleshing out.
We could use, like, a free-to-play Final Fantasy Tactics. That would be a game like that, free-to-play market, that would be an amazing MMO-type game.
The only thing that I can think about recently that's come out is Eagle Tactics, or Equal Tactics rather, online, and even that isn't quite a free to play Final Fantasy Tactics. I would argue that it has some similarities, but I don't think it's as in depth at times, and I think there's a little bit of pay to win aspects to it. But it's the most commonly thought of game, I guess you could say, when I try to think of something that's free to play related and like Final Fantasy Tactics. I would like something like Advance Wars. I think that'd be pretty awesome. Did you ever play Advance Wars?
I loved Advance Wars. That would be kind of fun to have an online game like that. Just have to hope.
Yep. Well, all right, guys, that will go ahead and conclude this episode of our free-to-play free-to-play cast. I am getting shows confused here. I was, of course, your host, Spunkify. Oni Snake, thank you so much for coming on here. Go ahead and give the nice gentlemen and women that are listening in to the show your Twitter, your YouTube, your whatever you want to give them, your address.
Everything for me is Oni Snake. Oni Snake at Hotmail. Twitter, Oni Snake. Twitch.tv, Oni Snake. YouTube is Oni Snake. I make it nice and easy for you guys.
All right, so just Oni Snake at everything at onisnake.com.
Including in-game. League of Legends, StarCraft, it's all Oni Snake.
Very easy to remember. That's very good. And as for me, Spunkify, you guys can watch me or listen to me, or not even listen to me, read what I write at Twitter, it's Spunkify, at Spunkify. Yeah. Oh, man, I'm tired. You can also email me any of your questions of the week, as well as just friendly hellos or goodbyes at michael@MMOBomb.com. As always, you can also catch me on our weekly show. It's a live stream, the Bomb Live, that happens. It's actually going to happen tomorrow, 4/17, but every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, I do a weekly show where we play some games, we have some fun, we do some sillies, and we overall have a good time. But that's been our show, guys. Hope you enjoyed it. This is Spunkify, and I'll see you next time. Spunkify out.